What's going on, Workforce? Brian here, and obviously I'm feeling so much better. And in fact, if you want to find out and you want to support Feeding America, be sure to check out the video that I posted yesterday. I'll include a link in the description for you if you're interested in getting caught up on really where I was. But today's video, what I want to sit down and talk to you guys about right now is really patch 5.3. It's coming out here in just a couple of months. We obviously know that there was going to be a delay. Yoshi-P kind of talked about that a little bit, but there's so much that's coming with this update, and I love how everything's really kind of changing the formula and what we expect, and how all of this is kind of playing out. And so I wanted to kind of share my thoughts because I haven't had the ability to. Chris summarized the video. He summarized all of what is basically coming in to be expected, so I'll include a link to that video somewhere in the cards or in the description, somewhere for you guys to find if you haven't seen that video already. But this is more just kind of my opinion. Now, towards the end of the video, I'll share some kind of concerns that I have for patch 5.3 and kind of the direction that they're going. It's not necessarily like overly negative, but I'll just throw it at the end in case in case you care to kind of have that opinion. But if you don't want any kind of, critique or concern like in your day, I totally get it. And then you can kind of just check out pretty much the vast amount of positive that's going to precede it, and then a couple concerns that I have towards the end. So let's dive in, because first and foremost, I think the thing that stands out immediately, because obviously we know we're getting story, we know we're getting a dungeon, like all of that is pretty much to be expected. So let's focus in on the unexpected, and that's first the flying as a part of the 5.3. They're also doing a story squish. I'll talk about that here in a second. But flying, I don't think it's needed. However, really excited that it's coming. And what I mean by that is that if you've not finished your Beast Tribe quests, this is going to be a great opportunity to make that so much easier. The only thing that I would have changed would be adding in the Aether Currents, just because I love seeing people run around. But in the grand scheme of things, that's just kind of a one and done opportunity. So the fact that you just clear the ARR story and boom, you have flying. Yeah, that's just kind of the fast track method as it all comes to pass. Honestly, I'm really excited to kind of see the zones from these different angles. I honestly think that this is great because it's going to check off that box. And what I mean by that is, if anybody's been to an open Q&A, if anybody's been to, kind of FanFest over the last, 6 years, 7 years, 10 years in that regards, pretty much since they introduced flying in Heavensward, it's been the question, will they bring it to the ARR zones? Obviously, some of these zones are smaller, but there's still going to be some benefit. Like if you look at where Casa de Sol is, that zone's going to be huge. Bronze Lake, that area is going to be nice. In fact, probably Linacia as a whole is going to benefit overall from having flying, just in how some of it's laid out. And this is going to be great. This is going to be great for crafting and gathering. This is just going to be great for the overall experience together, because it always kind of felt disjointed. Sure, I would love to see at some point them to expand on the zones and add in areas that you can only get to by flying. That would be really cool at some point in the future, and maybe this will pave the way for that. But beyond that itself, I think that's just going to make it to where the game feels more consistent and whole as a single product, as opposed to, okay, in everything that's new, you could do this flying stuff, and then everything else, like in these zones, you can't. And then it always kind of still felt a little bit weird when going in there. So overall, happy to see that they're adding it. I didn't ever think it was a need, based off the definition of need. It's not food, clothing, or shelter. But at the end of the day, I think this is going to just benefit that experience, bringing it all together. So we talked about the Beast Tribes, we talked about the zones. Let's talk about the story squish, though. They've cut out, 13 some odd quests. They're adding the Crystal Tower as a part of what's required for the story. I think that's great. Honestly, Crystal Tower always felt required to me, and the fact that it was off on the side, and the fact that you could experience Shadowbringers and not experience the Crystal Tower made sense from a time perspective. But this is going to give them the ability to go back and just make that cohesive, so you know who Gratia is, so you have that connection to him. Obviously, I guess if you skip that story because you can, you won't. But then, that's on you, as opposed to oh, I didn't know about that. Because there are some people who we keep saying, just keep working through the story, because the MSQ is the true kind of gate to the different content. this, I think, will hopefully help make that a little bit more cohesive in and of itself. Now, 13 quests overall. I think this is just going to be a little bit more streamlined. It's not going to be so revolutionary, and I was always personally concerned about, like, do they so change the core story of it that it kind of weakens it, or makes, you kind of had to be there to have that experience. And I think that what we probably will see with these quests is they're more going to be probably side quests and things like that. So it's like you could still probably go and experience it. But I'm actually kind of curious. I'm debating heavily on if I want to go and play through the that story again, like one last time on a different character, or if I want to wait till 5.3 and then play through it and see how my experiences differs from my memory. It's been a while, obviously years, since I'd done the 2.0 to 2.55 kind of quest line. And anyway, so that's just something I'm personally debating on. I haven't made a decision one way or the other about that. But regardless, we'll go, we'll continue on. So again, I love that they're changing the formula. We know that the Ultimate Fight is moving to the patch 5.5. I think that's gonna be perfect for that kind of time. If you guys aren't aware, I've debated on making a video kind of talking about when you should return. And typically the average or the big time in which that Final Fantasy XIV has the biggest population, the biggest surge, the most interest, it's usually from the 0.5 to the 0.1 patch of the next expansion. And that's because you end up being able to get all of the story, you get caught up, you're ready for the next expansion, and it kind of carries you into the story, and then you kind of go and play other games. That's kind of the majority of the player base, and then there's the weirdos like me who usually stick around a long time and play through each patch as it drops. And obviously, I'm only joking because I know there's a good amount of people who do that as well. But when we look at the numbers, when we talk to people, that kind of ends up being what it is. So if you're considering returning to the game, maybe consider and wait till 5.3 drops, because you're going to have some changes and some additions there. Or typically, if you're looking to return when the most interest is there, that's usually going to be the 0.5 patch that's going to lead you into the expansion. That's going to be when there's lots of excitement, lots of people coming in, getting caught up on the content and more. So that's pretty much what the context of that video would be. But I love, like I said, that they're making changes to the formula. Obviously, we're not getting a deep dungeon in 5.3. They're talking about exploration content. They've talked about more content like Valdesian Arsenal. That personally has me excited. Now, what I would like to see, if you're going to say, hey, Brian, what would you have loved to seen here, is that we've got 2 deep dungeons. It would be neat to see if they would be able to bring those into more relevance for end game players or higher end players. I think that kind of content is really interesting and exciting, and it would be cool to see them bring it up to the current level cap in some ways, or add in additional floors, or do different things like that to what already currently exists. And that's kind of the big exciting thing when you look at the Unreal trials that they're bringing or they're going to be bringing into the game. This has me personally excited, because one of the things, and this kind of gets into my continual critique of Final Fantasy XIV, one of the things I've often said is that as a theme park, when the expansion kind of drops, they kind of light it up, and some attractions get lit up later as a part of as the expansion goes on, and that's just something we've come to expect. But what ends up happening is that especially for current players, then you look at the rest of the theme park and it doesn't get any or as much attention. Obviously for new players kind of going through it, that's kind of their bread and butter, but there's been no real incentive for an endgame player to go back. So when Eden Ray drops, when you have the dungeons, you have those new tomes, one of the constant critiques, and this isn't my critique, but this is what I see as a content creator, people will come in and they'll kind of razz on the game, 2 tokens in a raid, and that's just because that's kind of the current end game. However, when you look at 14 as an entire product, the theme park is vast and it's got so many cool attractions. The problem is that, well, why should you go back and do them? And it just needs a little bit of incentive. And obviously the counter argument is that you do it because it's fun. And I totally agree with that. After 5 or 6 times, there still needs to be an incentive. There needs to be a carrot for any player to kind of really go back and want to repeat that content. And so what the Unreal Trials tells me is that's that first step into that investment of saying, let's light the entire park up. Let's take this base of content and let's make it relevant to players. Let's make it relevant. And again, I love the fact that they're going to rotate these things, and hopefully we'll start to see, once they kind of bring everything up to that level cap, and hopefully they do it in a way that with the next expansion. The next expansion makes it easier, that we could start to see things happen more frequently on a weekly or a bi-weekly kind of way. I also hope that we see this kind of done with the dungeons. We've got 70, 80 dungeons at the end of this expansion. And at some point, we have a huge amount of content, and I'd love to see them just do that same kind of thing. Bring it up, make it current, make it a weekly rotator, or like I said, bi-weekly rotator, so that you can get something like really exciting, and it's like, yes, and then you can go and try and challenge it each and every week, and that would add on, because again, you don't need to be bringing in 2 dungeons, or like back in the day, 3 dungeons per patch. You've got enough content, just change it up slightly. Use what you already have in your toolkit in this entire theme park, and give me a reason to go to that section of the theme park for any reason. And we've also seen some of this with the current relic, using poetics, being able to get your other relics that way, and I think that's genius. I love that we can start to use the whole game to bring in and obviously help out newer players through that content, but also have a reason and a value to doing so. This is always a tough balance. It's going to always continue to be a tough balance when it comes down to it, because you also want to put people into the new content. That's what they're excited about and excited about experiencing. So we talked about the whole theme park, Unreal Trials, and more. So honestly, I'm really excited. But so concerns wise, when they talk about flying being added and the devs kind of going above and beyond, this was not scheduled work. This is the devs working after hours to get this done. First and foremost concern is that the devs at some point experience a burnout, because if they're doing this thing for us, which is such a treat, hopefully they're taking a good balance and they're having fun with it, so that it's something that they're giving us this gift, just like they gave us some helmets and some stuff for the Rothgar and the Viera. I think what we'll continue to see them do those kind of things with time. The other concern, though, is that from a management perspective, me, like as a developer, when I live in this world, is that I am always continually feeling like what they're doing is they're investing in the 2016 project. We know Yoshi P's got a new game that he's been working on since 2016. I don't think we're going to see that game anytime soon, especially if it's an online multiplayer game. Those take more work and more effort. That all being said, everything that, when we look at this, when the devs are working after hours to bring us flying in these zones, when we see kind of a reduction, this is all a feeling that I have. This is all just this feeling. It's not based in fact, but you just kind of look at the things that are happening, and you're like, it just feels like we're not getting the level of investment within Final Fantasy XIV than I wish that we were. And this could all be for naught, because I don't see them, turning off 14 anytime soon. I don't see, I see 6.0 and 7.0. I think they're going to continue to put the level of investment that they've set for this game to continue to expand it, to continue to focus in on the core strengths that people really resonate. And you see that with the relic, you see that with the story, and the fact that they really put the narrative that they put into the relic that they have, tells me that they're really going to lean into the narrative approach for this game to a degree that's just really above and beyond anything that we've seen on the market. I think, though, that when you look at the team and the resources, people were like, oh, I'd love it if they were going to bring in more raids to this game. That's something we've heard within the community. I love it if we want more. One of the coolest things and one of the signs of health in this game is not just the new players, but gamers want more. We want more raids, we want more this, we want more that. I think really the pattern is set. That's why, again, I like that they're changing up that pattern a little bit. But from an investment perspective, it does have me excited for whatever this 2016 project is. But until we know what that is, until we get more information on it, it does feel like it's almost, a feeling of that robbing Peter to pay Paul. And Paul being the 2016 project, Peter being the 14 player base in and of itself. So at the end of the day, I'm really looking forward to seeing what the next kind of exploration, aka Eureka content is. I really am interested to see how they use the world visit. The quality of life stuff with the party finder is just, I think, really exciting to see them do that. Sometimes it's some of the smallest things that really kind of have the biggest impact. If you were asking me what my list would be right now, what would I love to see? I'd love to see some of the companion app stuff brought into the game. When we had they had the fellowships, and honestly that just seems like the most unused bit. That could be just for me, but I know that like I would rather have seen that kind of content with message boards, schedules, and polls brought into the free company system as opposed to its own standalone thing. So hopefully we'll start to see them see what's working, what's not, be able to kind of overall improve the different systems in the game, especially that haven't seen so many updates in a long time. Hopefully they'll continue to expand the level caps of like free companies and things like that to give us more things to strive for and more. Anyway, without making this video overly long and complex, those are my thoughts. I don't know if they line up with yours, but if they do or they don't, sound off in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Again, I'm happy to be back. I'm happy to be able to make some videos. If there's a topic that you guys want to see, want me to like kind of weigh in on one way or the other, be sure to sound off in the comments below. And now that I'm feeling better, I've got some collabs that I'm working on getting scheduled for you guys, a couple discussion topics that I've kind of held off for a while since I haven't been feeling good, obviously, and that I'm really looking forward to sitting down and talking with you. Anyway, guys, for Work to Game, my name is Brian. Thanks so much for watching this video. Hope you guys have a fantastic day, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.